Great. So welcome, everybody. Thanks. This is our first ever one of our Natural World webinars, and we're hoping to hold these sessions monthly, all on different topics. We ran a survey to see the kind of things that you guys would like to see. So we're hoping to do some nature photography. We've got an International Women's Day session coming up next month, and then in April a Blossom session. So we're hoping you can join us for future sessions. So this is the first of our sessions. So we're really pleased to have so many of you on board. So I'm going to just run a little poll just to start off with and see how many of you have heard of City of Trees. So it'll be interesting to know how many of you know about City of Trees and how many of you are new to us. So I'm just going to do that now.
Can see a few people have said they've volunteered with us before, which is lovely.
Okay, so hopefully that should come up. And that'll be great if everyone can have a go at filling that out. Just tell us if you've heard of City of Trees before this session, so we just get a feel of how many of you know us before the call. Great, interesting. Quite a few of you are friends then, friends that you may have volunteered with us and stuff before, so that's great, and nice to see a good chunk of you are new. So just to tell you a little bit about City of Trees for those who haven't heard of us. So City of Trees, we work across Greater Manchester, and our goals are to plant more trees, plant 3 million trees within the next 5 years, restore woodlands around Greater Manchester, and also to inspire people for trees and woods. So we're holding these Natural World webinars with the aim of kind of connecting people to nature and learning a little bit more about trees and woods from wherever they may be. So this is, as I said, the first of our sessions, and it's going to be a tree ID workshop, and it's held by Shannon, who works for City of Trees as one of our assistant project officers. We're going to take questions, but we'll probably do them at the end. So if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat, and then when we get time at the end, I'll ask Shannon those. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to Shannon, and she's going to go through some basic tree ID for everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. So yes, as Sarah mentioned, I'm an assistant project officer at City of Trees. So I'm out on the ground, especially at the minute while we're in planting season, getting those trees in the ground, you know, finding sites that are appropriate for us to plant on and making communities just that little bit greener. It's so nice to see that so many of you have already volunteered with us and that you're engaged with our work. So I'll just go through the structure of this session so we all know. So we're going to do just a quick little photo round, just to test your initial knowledge, as it were. This isn't going to be scored. And when each slide comes up, feel free to just put it in the chat. Just throw out whatever you think it is. They're not too hard. And then we're going to go through the top 10 most common trees in the UK. There will be a true or false element to this, and that will be scored. So there are 10 points available. That's what you'll need your pen and paper for. So if you just want to grab that now, if you don't have one, or just do phone, something nearby. So 10 points for that, 10 most common trees in the UK. We'll look at the leaves, any seeds, and the bark. I saw a few comments in the chat of people saying that they are looking to be able to identify buds and naked winter trees. Unfortunately, I haven't included that. That can probably be a whole other presentation in itself. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but I will give a couple of recommendations at the end for resources that you can look at for winter twigs, basically, ID. And then at the end, we'll do another quiz, but this one will be marked. So this one will be to see how much you've actually learned over the course of the session. So that will be the same trees, just a couple of photos, and that'll again be 10 points. So 20 available in total. There will be a small prize for the top scores. I won't give away what it is, so we can try and do that at the end with so many of us. So I hope you've all grabbed a pen and paper. Like Sarah said, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat function, and then she can ask them to me at the end. So first one, what does everyone think this is? Oh, I've just given it away. We've got, yeah. Everyone knows.
Yeah, some good answers there.
Yeah. Rowan, unmistakable. Yeah. Looks like everyone's pretty hot on this already. Next one. And I gave away the first one. Yeah. Few mixed ones for this.
This one's a little bit harder to I think can be easily confused.
Yeah, we'll can mention that a bit later on. This one might throw people as well, actually. I know it got a couple of the assistant project officers the other day. Can see one right answer. Yeah, this one. Hornbeam. It does look very similar to hazel and elm. This might be more of an obvious one. Yeah. Does anyone know specifically what kind of pine? There we go. Yeah.
There we go, got it.
Pine. This one?
So this one, a bit of a clue, although people might not need it, it's yeah, the water is a bit of a clue because it really likes the water. Yeah, people seem to know this one.
Of course. Quite a common one, this one. Yep, Sycamore. Yep. Some mixed answers, but they are all right. We'll come to that a bit later on. Yeah, Sycamore, wonderful. I feel like everyone will know. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most recognisable.
Yeah, different names for it, but all the same. Conker tree. Yeah, perfect. I think this might be the last one. Yeah, a couple of different answers. This is an alder. This one. So that was just to get your brains working, see what everyone knew from the offset. I'm very impressed. Seems like we've got good range of knowledge. So just before we dive into the 10 trees, just wanted to cover a few terms that I'm going to mention, just so you're not thinking, I have no idea what she's talking about. So alternate and opposite, that will refer to where the buds sit on the stem and therefore where the leaves come from. So alternate basically just means that the leaves and buds aren't facing each other. They make sort of spiral pattern up the stem instead. And then opposite, the clue is in the name. The buds sit on opposite sides of the stem and the leaves are facing each other. And then different types of leaf. You've got simple leaf, which I think is what you would imagine if you just thought of a classic leaf, or if you asked a child to draw a leaf, this is what you're going to get. So it's one whole structure, not divided up, one complete thing. Whereas a compound leaf, so this diagram that you can see is still one leaf, but it's made up of different leaflets. So this one's got 5 leaflets, but it's one complete leaf. And then just to make things a little bit more complicated, within compound leaves, you've got palmate and pinnate. So palmate, you can see there, compound leaf, 5 leaflets, but palmate means that all the leaflets stem from one place. And the way I like to remember it, so for example, with this leaf that's got 5 leaflets, think of your palm, all your fingers come from one location, basically. That's the same with leaflets in a leaf. whereas pinnate means that they all come from different points on the stem. They don't all join one spot. And we'll see examples of each of these as we go through. So, first one is oak. What I think might be the most recognisable out of all the trees that we're going to cover. You can see them anywhere, obviously mostly found in woodlands, parks, gardens. You might see them as street trees, wide range of conditions, but prefer well-drained soils and sunny locations. It's obviously the National Trust logo, which you might know it from, but it is the UK's most common tree. Obviously you've got the very recognisable large leaves, alternate, which obviously means leaves aren't facing each other on the stem, with lobes and smooth edges. Younger trees will actually hold their leaves over winter, so it's actually sort of an easier tree to recognise in some circumstances, because you can see little brown leaves over the winter period, which not many trees do. And then obviously you've got the seeds in the form of acorns, which we all know and love. This is the English oak, the Quercus robur. This is also known as peduncular oak. There is another type of oak, which is Quercus petrea, and that's a sessile oak, and they do look very similar. I'm not sure, unless you were able to get up close, I'm not sure how easy it would be to tell the difference. But the difference is that peduncular oak has leaves that have almost no stalks, but acorns that have long stalks, so you can see in that photo there. And then sessile, which is the other one, it's the opposite. So the leaves have stalks, but the acorns don't. But either way, oaks have very recognisable bark. So it's smooth, silver brown when it's young, but the older trees will have darker brown, more fissured bark with grooves. So your first true or false: the oak tree is the national tree of England. Just write this down so you don't give it away, because this is a point. Okay. So then we've got beech. This is found all over the UK, but you're most likely to see it in southern and central England. It's quite a nice, versatile tree, I think, because you can have, if it's managed, you can have beech hedgerow, which is actually what we've got in front of our office. It's lovely. Or you can have, well, because beech can grow up to 40 metres tall, you can have beech woodland, which, because the canopy is so dense, means that the woodland floor is very shaded, which then means that only specialist species can sort of tolerate and survive the shading. Like, for example, hazel is quite tolerant of shady environments. So the leaves, you're looking out for alternate, again, not facing each other on the stem, oval leaves with smooth edges, but that have a wave at the edge as well to the leaf. As with young oaks, actually, young beech trees will also hold their leaves. So again, quite easy to spot a beech at this time of year, especially if it's younger, because you can see the lovely brown, sort of this colour, leaves still clinging onto the trees. And then you've got seeds, which come in the form of beech nuts and are in brown prickly casings. That's another surefire giveaway for a beech tree. Beech nuts actually used to be used by farmers to fatten up pigs in farming, which is a nice little fact. And then they've got thin grey bark, which is smooth when the trees are young as well. So you're true or false for this. Beech trees grow well in soils with high water content and can tolerate waterlogged soil. True or false?
And we've just had a question come in, Shannon, so we'll just ask that now, if that's all right, while we've got a bit of people are writing down their answers.
Yeah.
So George has asked, why do some trees hold their leaves rather than drop them?
Ooh.
So
I believe it's for protection in the winter months, but I will double check that just to make sure that's factually correct for you. Okay, so next we've got ash. So ash is you will see it around, but maybe less so in the coming years and in the future. We've got one outside our window actually that I'm looking at the minute, and it's a gorgeous tree, very easily recognizable once you sort of know what you're looking for. Often found in mixed broadleaf woodland green spaces. Like I said, we haven't, while I've been with City of Trees, we haven't actually planted any ash, but we'll come on to that reason. So ash trees have compound leaves, which, like we said, it's a leaf, but it's made up of different leaflets, so what looks like a smaller leaf basically. So each compound leaf will have 3 to 6 pairs of leaflets with serrated edges with a single leaflet at the end, and the seeds come in the form of green keys. As I said about oak and beech leaves staying on the trees, ash trees will hold their keys over winter. So again, quite easy to recognise. I can see hundreds of keys outside my window right now. They will go brown, but they're still there. And then also, actually, ash trees are have very recognisable bark. So it starts off smooth and grey, develops some fissures, but you will notice that they have quite a lot of lichens growing on the bark. If you don't know what a lichen is, I think you would probably recognise them. It looks like a sort of, they come in different colours, but like a crust on surfaces almost, and it's a compound organism made of algae or cyanobacteria and fungi. So you'll notice a lot of lichens growing on the bark of ash trees. So the true or false for this: ash trees are vulnerable to disease caused by a fungus. I've given a bit of a clue to this. Okay, move on. Horse chestnut. So don't know where, well, I do know where everyone's from. Don't know what you find in your local parks, but I'm in South Manchester and we have so many horse chestnut trees in the parks near us. I think they're lovely in summer. So you'll find them often in parks and as street trees, and they've got very large palmate leaves, which, as we mentioned, just think of your palm. So each leaflet's coming off one central point, big serrated leaflets. And then they've got these gorgeous white flowers, which they have in summer. And I like to think of them as almost candles growing out of the leaves, sitting on the leaves. They're large as well, really gorgeous to look at. And then those flowers, once they've been pollinated, become horse chestnuts, or conkers as we know them, which are basically just the seeds of the horse chestnut tree. It's how they reproduce. I don't know if anyone has ever played the game Conkers, where you put 2 at the end of a piece of string and you have to see whose will break first. Simple fun. And the bark of the horse chestnut is grey-brown and it's quite fissured. So you're true or false for this? Horse chestnut is a native UK species. These trees are massive. They can grow up to 40 metres tall, which makes them a good park tree. Move on to sycamore. So it's quick growing, grows everywhere, which is why it's become naturalised, which basically means it's not native. The Romans brought it in. It's from Central, Eastern and Southern Europe, grows naturally in all those regions. But naturalised basically means that it grows freely in the wild. It has no trouble. Our native wildlife has adapted well, lives freely on it, and it grows well anywhere. So you can look out for palmate leaves, again, lobes coming from a central point, on red stalks with 5-toothed lobes. It's not that easy to see in this photo because this is a sapling, but you're looking out for 5-toothed lobes. Quite easily mistaken for a Norway maple or a London plane tree. So the difference is with Norway maple, the leaves are quite a lot pointier. If you want to look up just the photo of a Norway maple leaf, you'll see what I mean. So more spikes on the lobe, basically. And then London plane, the leaves are quite a lot bigger. And you can also tell from London plane bark, because it's really very flaky, but when it's flaking off, it develops a sort of camouflage pattern. And they're obviously found predominantly down south in London. So that's just sort of a quick way to tell the difference between those three trees. And then also sycamores produced winged seeds, which you'll know is helicopters. That's what I called them when I was in school. But their official name is samaras. So that's a good way to recognise them as well. And you're looking for smooth grey bark, which is young, which is when the trees are young, but then develops cracks and leads to a scaled appearance, not as intense as a London plane tree would be though. So you're true or false for this. Sycamore is in the maple family and the sap can be reduced down to syrup. So let's move on. So alder. So this thrives on wet ground near rivers, streams. If you're in, or if you need to plant a tree on wet ground, this is what you should opt for. It's not that large. It can go up to 20 meters, but it's very good in wet environments. I think this is my favorite tree because the leaves sometimes look like little heart shapes. So this threw a few people, but they've got rounded serrated leaves with a little indent at the tip. If you were thinking it was a hazel's got more of a serrated edge with a sort of point at the tip rather than a rounded edge. And then what you can see in the top photo of the leaf, they're called catkins. They're the little flowers that the tree produces. They, when pollinated, become seeds, which are in the form of small cones. But these cones, again, with a few others that I've mentioned, they will stay on the tree over winter. So if you go out and you see an alder tree at the minute, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a few cones just still clinging onto the tree. And then you've got dark grey fissured bark to look out for with alder trees. So you're true or false here. Alder trees can improve the soil around them by fixing nitrogen in the soil. So nitrogen is important for plant growth and for photosynthesis, basically. And it's what you'll find in fertilizers. Oh, the cat arrived. Okay, this is another one that threw people. So this is Hornbeam, native to the south of England, but you will find it everywhere now. Basically, I know we've planted it as part of Urban Tree Challenge as a street tree. Makes a lovely street tree. It can grow to about 30 meters. So hornbeams have alternate, again, not facing each other, oval leaves with toothed or serrated edges. That's the difference between this and beech. Beech trees will have smooth edges that are a bit wavy, whereas hornbeam will always be serrated. And whereas a wych elm or a hazel will have a bit of a point, like a very pronounced point at the tip. Hornbeam don't really have that as much. And then also you can tell the difference between hornbeam and beech because they produce seeds in different forms. So hornbeams, you can see here, produce winged seeds, whereas the beeches, as we mentioned, produce beech nuts. So yeah, the hornbeams will produce catkins, like we said, they're little flowers, which will become the winged seeds that you can see in that photo. And the bark is a silvery grey with sort of faint, pale vertical markings. You're true or false for this? Hornbeam wood is very soft and can be used to make paper. Okay, move on. Scotch pine. So we've covered only broadleaf species up to now. This is unfortunately the only conifer that we will be covering, but it makes it stand out. It's easier to recognise. So you'll find it predominantly in the Scottish Highlands, in the Caledonian Forest, but it's been planted elsewhere across the UK. You can see it in parks. I know in the woodlands that I work at in Wythenshawe, we have a few Scotch pine, and they're really lovely, sort of adds a little bit of something different to a broadleaf woodland. But they will grow mainly, or well, they'll grow well in acidic soil, because pine needles are acidic. When they break down, they make the soil a bit more acidic. So these trees will be green year round, evergreen, just like any other conifer, with needle-like leaves. And it's hard to see in that photo, but the little needles are arranged in pairs. And then everyone will recognise a pine cone. This is the form that the seeds take. This is what the seeds are encased in. I wouldn't encourage anyone to pull a pine cone off a tree, but if you find them on the ground, they make very nice bird feeders. You can just coat them in peanut butter or suet, lard, whatever, roll it in seeds or whatever you want to feed your birds with, and then just hang it out on a little piece of twine. Then you've got a natural bird feeder. The bark is also very recognisable because it's darker brown at the bottom, very, very thick and scaly. But if the further up the tree you look, it'll become a sort of lighter colour, an orange colour. So there's a bit of a gradient the further up you work. And then your true or false for this one. Scotch pine is our only native pine tree. Okay, so now we move on to Rowan. This is a very good garden and street tree. It doesn't grow that tall. It's about 12 metres-ish at its tallest, so it would fit nicely in a good sized garden. Naturally, it's mainly found at higher altitudes, which gives it the name mountain ash. That's its other name, which makes it quite confusing because it does look a lot like ash, which we've already spoken about. So you can identify Rowan by the leaves. They have compound leaves, again, like ash, with 6 to 8 pairs of serrated leaflets with one at the end. But the difference between Rowan, mountain ash, and common ash is that the Rowan leaves will be, leaflets and leaves, will be a lot smaller. Hard to tell in photos, but there is quite a large size difference, and also the general size difference of the overall tree. So ash can be 35 to 40 meters, whereas, as I mentioned, this is 12 meters maximum. And then again, the seeds. So ash trees will have keys which form and then turn brown and stay on the trees, whereas Rowan have bright red berries, which you'll see in autumn. In autumn, that grow in clusters. These are really good food resources for animals, birds, but you can also, if you're so inclined, you can make Rowan jelly out of it. Or I think we had someone comment on one of our Instagram posts and say she was going to make some Rowan berry tea out of it. So there might be some nice recipes out there if you fancy it. And Rowan trees have smooth grey brown bark, but unlike ash trees, won't really have lichens growing on it. So true or false, Rowan used to be planted outside homes for protection against witches.
And for those interested in foraging, we do a monthly foraging blog, and we've also got some downloadable resources around foraging and recipes, so we'll share those with you on email after the event.
Okay. So this one, not a species, but a genus. So sort of the bigger group that these trees are a part of. So you'll, I'm sure, all recognise white willow, crack willow, weeping willow would be a very recognisable one. There's also goat willow. Leaves pretty typical of a willow, generally long, thin, oval shape with smooth edges. It's the size of the tree which sort of gives it away. So a goat willow can be about 12 meters tall, but white willows are about 25 meters tall. But all of them, like, as Sarah mentioned before, a little clue, really prefer deep soil in wet ground. So as I said with alder, if you're looking to plant in soil ground with a high water content, you'd plant maybe an alder and a birch, definitely a willow. I know sites that we've been to that are very wet and have flooding problems, we've always put quite a lot of willow species in, a good mix of willow species. So the leaves, long, thin, oval shapes, and then they produce little catkins, again the flowers, which become fluffy white seeds which blow away easily in the wind. And the willow bark is sort of a grey-brown colour generally, with deep fissures. It's quite recognisable willow bark. And it's actually got, what's it called? Salicin in it, which is a natural painkiller, which can be used in, it is used in different medicines. So your true or false here, there are 100 species of willow worldwide.
And just had a question come through, Shannon, just about different willow species, if you're able to answer this one. Someone's asked whether goat willow leaves are the same shape.
I think goat willow is a little bit rounder, so that doesn't necessarily follow the typical pattern of long and thin and oval, so they're a bit shorter and a bit more rounded. I don't think I would immediately recognise goat willow as a willow. Yes, but I think they've still got little serrated edges.
Thanks.
And then when the catkins are out and the seeds, it's easier to see. Okay, so we'll see what you've all learned. Again, no answers in the chat because this is marked, but this is our next pitch around. So if everyone's ready, 1 mark for each. So maybe easier for some of them to not just look at the leaves, but look at the other photo that comes with it as well. Okay, next one. Okay, move on. One to be careful with, easily confused with some other trees. Move on to the next one. Nice easy one. Okay, move on. Another one that might trip people up, but it'll be the seeds that can help you identify this one, might give it away. Okay. What we've just talked about. Move on. Nice, easily recognisable one. Okay. Nice and straightforward, that one. Okay, next one. Just move on to the next one. Again, the seeds are a giveaway for this one. Might be able to do it by process of elimination as well for what you've already written down. Move on to the next one. Oh no, I won't, because that was the last one. Okay, so we'll go through the answers now. 20 points available. So you can put it, I think a few people are putting it in the chat anyway. Is the oak tree the national tree of England? True or false? Oh, mixed. Some mixed answers. Yeah, it's true. It is. It's the national tree of England. It's the most common, so makes sense. Beech trees grow well in soils with high water content and can tolerate waterlogged soil. True or false? Yeah, some mainly getting false. Yeah, false. They can tolerate some moisture, but they prefer deep, well-drained soil, nothing where water's standing, or it can cause the roots to rot, which will obviously kill the tree. So false. It's not like willow or alder that can tolerate waterlogging. Sort of alluded to this. Ash trees are vulnerable to disease caused by fungus. True or false? Yeah, I've seen the name of it there mentioned. Yeah,
well done, Rebecca. Got that one.
true, of course. It's ash dieback. Yeah, been in the UK since 2012, and it's estimated that it will end up affecting 80% of our ash trees. I think there's research ongoing, so I think it's somewhere down south, I can't remember what county it is, there's a woodland that's been found to have some sort of natural immunity from ash dieback. There's a higher percentage of trees which survive ash dieback being in the woodland. So that's, there are currently studies ongoing about why that might be genetically. But I know that a lot of trees are having to come down because of that, and that's why we don't plant ash anymore, because of the risk of disease. And it's so easy to spread. It's spread by wind, or even people going in and out of woodlands. So it's quite hard to contain as well, which is why so many are going to be affected. I think it came from Denmark, where it's pretty much decimated the ash population there. Don't know. Holland, maybe. I'll double check. Number 4, horse chestnut is a native UK species. Yeah, false. It comes from Southeast Europe, the Balkan Mountains. But again, like sycamore, it has been naturalised. So it's been here long enough that it's basically adapted to, well, not adapted, but it's well suited to our climate, environment, native flora and fauna. Yeah, so it grows well in the wild here. Number 5, sycamore is in the maple family and the sap can be reduced down to syrup. Yep, got some mixed results for this one. So this one is true. There's a little bit of a clue in the shape of the leaf, and also that I said it can be confused with Norway maple. They're all in the same genus, the Acer genus. If you ever see a scientific name with Acer something, they're the maples. So you can drill in basically and let the sap leak out, plug your hole, and then you just simmer the sap down until you get a thick syrup. So not really maple syrup as you know it, but. Number 6, alder trees can improve the soil around them by fixing nitrogen in the soil. True or false? Yeah. Oh, a couple of mixed results. Yeah, I don't know if this would trip people up. It is true. I could be really picky and say this is a trick question and say it's not actually the trees that do the nitrogen fixation. It's bacteria that live in the roots. It's a symbiotic relationship. So the trees provide nutrients, well, energy, glucose to the bacteria, and then the bacteria provide nitrogen, which they fix from the air, which, as I mentioned, the trees need for growth and photosynthesis. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. But yes, where there is an alder tree, you can expect the soil to be somewhat improved from its existence there, basically. Number 7, hornbeam wood is very soft and can be used to make paper. True or false? Yeah, oh, this is really divided the audience. So this is false. It's actually the opposite. It's very hard. So you would use really soft woods like spruces or pines to make paper, whereas hornbeam wood's so hard. It's historically used to make things like carriages and windmills, and nowadays you might use it to make tools or cogs in machinery. So very, very hard rather than being soft enough to make paper from. Number 8, Scotch pine is our only native pine tree. True or false? Yeah. Almost everyone getting it right. Oh, a few mixed results. So this is true. It's not our only native conifer. We have 3 native conifers. There's the Scotch pine, the yew, and juniper. But it is our only native pine tree. So that one is true. Rowan used to be planted outside homes for protection against witches. True or false? Yeah, it's true. So if anyone's got any rowan knocking about near their front step, know you're protected. It also apparently used to work if you just carry a twig around from a rowan tree. There's quite a lot of folklore surrounding rowan that I found when I was doing a bit of research for this. I think it was Norse mythology. They said that the first woman was made from a rowan tree, whereas the first man was made from an ash. So women came from mountain ash and men came from common ash. And number 10, there are 100 species of willow worldwide. Some mixed results here as well. False. There are 400, over 400 species of willow worldwide. So that's not just in the UK. I don't know how many we have in the UK. Definitely not 400 though. Okay, ID quiz. Number 1, I'll just run through these and then we can go through marks. So number 1 was an ash, common ash. Number 2, alder. Number 3 was a beech. Number 4 was a Scotch pine. 5 was a hornbeam. 6 was willow. 7, horse chestnut. 8 was an oak. 9, sycamore. And then 10 was rowan. So if you want to all add up your scores from that, I'll just give you a moment for that. And while you're doing so, just go through some resources that we've got. So everything that I've talked about in this presentation, one of my colleagues, Jess, has written up into a how-to guide, which we'll go through basically everything that I've said. So that's on our website, cityoftrees.org.uk, and then you go under resources, and then under there, how-to guides. So you can follow that link or just go through it manually. It's quite easy to find. And then there'll be under that page the how to identify the UK's most common trees page. But you'll also have other things like how to take care of your tree, how to get a street tree planted, things like that. And then if you're interested in any more reading, we've got some blogs that we did for our Greater Manchester Tree Month in November last year. And one of those, people have asked before, oh, what can I plant in my garden? So one of those blogs is actually a top 10 trees for your garden. So things like a holly or a rowan, this strawberry tree, which is a bit more exotic, a nice birch, things like that. So if you want to check that out. Oh, and also I mentioned any resources for tree bud ID before. So there's a company that we work with, Discover the Wild, who does our Forage and Feast blogs. Actually, he's done a winter bud ID sheet, which is it's just a photo sheet with a close-up of buds of, I think, maybe 20 different common UK trees, which is quite a good visual aid. And then the Woodland Trust have also got one as well. I think that's not as many trees, but still covers the main ones. And I think they're little diagrams of what you should look out for if you're trying to identify tree whips or twigs in winter.
And we'll be sharing all these resources by email afterwards as well. And before everyone goes, I'd just like to get a little bit of a feeling on how kind of your tree ideas maybe improved or not sure from this webinar. So that would be really good if you could just take that. And thank you so much, everybody. We've recorded the session, so we'll be putting that on our YouTube channel, and then we'll be following up with an email just to signpost you to some of the resources. And if you want to stay in touch with us, you can let us know. Shannon, do you want to just talk about the prize and how people can claim that if they've got sort of 20 out of 20, I guess? Was that the
yes?
Should
we? Yes. Sorry, go on.
So yeah, what we'll do is when we email you all, if you did get 20 out of 20 based on trust, if you can email us your postal address, and then we'll post you out some wildflower seeds. I think we have to put in your garden. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you want to let us know if you got 20 out of 20 by email, then we'll post you out some wildflower seeds. So yes, thank you everyone for joining. Hope you enjoyed today, and we'll be in touch via email just to signpost you to some resources. So thank you everybody for joining. Hope you enjoyed today's session.
It looks like everyone learned quite a lot.
Yeah,
very
definitely.
Positive.
Good. We'll share those results.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so hopefully 92% of you said your knowledge is a little bit better, so that's great. There's so much to learn, and we've got so much to learn as well. So you know, as soon as we kind of know anything, we'll share it with you guys, and hopefully you can join us for another webinar session as well. Someone's asked you, Shannon, actually, they'd love to know how you learn about trees, so what your background is.
So if I'm being completely honest, I didn't really know that much about trees before I started at City of Trees. I really do think it was just sort of immersive learning almost. So I started in January last year, which is planting season. So every day you're going into the garage and you're looking at tree whips and you're learning, oh, this bud means it's this tree. And then obviously out doing a lot of woodland management in summer, and you just kind of, once you know the signs to look for, it does just sort of all fall into place and it clicks, and you can just turn around and glance and say, oh yeah, that is a willow or it's an alder. I also like, because all anyone can do nowadays is go on a walk. If you're out on a walk, test yourself, test your knowledge, get an app that you can double check with. So I have one on my phone. I'm not saying always rely on apps, but it's just nice to have as a backup. I have one on my phone called Picture This, which is just, you take a photo of a leaf or a flower or something, and it will tell you what it is or the closest thing to what it could be. So while you're out on a walk, you can just be looking around you, think, I think this is this, snap a photo, double check. So it's always like an ongoing test of your knowledge. And if you're going to new places, there's always something new that you will see. There's a walk that I go on near us, just up the Fallowfield Loop, and there's some white poplar growing up there. And for a long time I was thinking, I have no idea what that is. I don't know. But again, once you know the signs to look for, it becomes a lot easier. iNaturalist is a good app, actually. Yeah, a few people at work have got that.
And a few people have asked about volunteering. So we do normally run throughout the year, sort of almost daily volunteering sessions, whether that's planting trees, helping to restore woodlands, planting wildflowers. Unfortunately, we can't run those at the moment, obviously due to COVID. It's not safe. So we will be running those as soon as we are able to, and we've got sort of stronger guidance around that. So the best thing to do is sign up to our newsletter and check out our social media and our website, and as soon as we can run those events safely, we definitely will be. But yes, we run loads of volunteering events, and we're quite sad that we can't, because we love to get out with volunteers. It's one of the things I know that I enjoy one of the most about City of Trees, but we just can't at the moment, but we will be soon. So hopefully come spring we'll be able to run some sessions.
Any more questions?
I think JC asked, do we have an equivalent of City of Trees in Lancashire? I don't think that there is anything, as far as I know, in Lancashire. I think there was the Lancashire Woodlands project, but I'm not sure that's running at the moment. So we only know that sort of the Mersey Forest, which covers sort of Merseyside and the Liverpool City region. But if you drop us an email, JC, I will check with the team, and there may be some more sort of community-based projects, but there's not a sort of big equivalent of City of Trees in Lancashire. But drop us an email and we can do a little bit more digging for you, and there may be a local sort of community group or woodland that you can volunteer with when things are kind of back and it's safe. So yeah, if you do have any more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer them. Like I said, we'll follow up with an email. So we'll be in touch with more information. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email, and we'll do our best to get back to you with that as well. And yes, someone's recommended the Smithills Estate, with the Woodland Trust up in Bolton. That's really, really beautiful piece of woodland. Lots of walks there, and again, when it's safe, there's lots of engagement events to get involved in as well.
Saw a lot of people dropping scientific names. That's a good sign. Everyone's absorbed or came with that knowledge already. I don't know.
I don't think we've got any more questions coming through. So if not, we'll end the session. But like I said, get in touch. We'll drop you an email, so feel free to respond to that, and we'll do our best to answer any of your queries. And thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It's the first in our webinars, doing it from our bedrooms and living rooms. So we appreciate your patience and engagement with that, and hopefully see you at another session soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, thank you, everyone.